I used to believe he loved me. Even after the first time he pushed me against the wall, I told myself it was stress, that he would change. But the bruises kept coming, and so did the words. "You deserve this." That was his favorite line, as if he needed to remind me that I was worthless every single time he hurt me. People thought we had a perfect life. On Instagram, we smiled, we hugged, we traveled. But behind the front door of our small townhouse, I learned to flinch at the sound of his voice, to shrink whenever he walked past. It was like living inside a nightmare you couldn't wake up from. One night, I was trying to stir a pot of pasta for dinner. My hands were shaking so hard that the spoon clattered against the pan. I felt him watching me, that cold, hateful look in his eyes. "Why do you always ruin everything?" he snapped. "I'm sorry," I whispered, barely breathing. "Sorry?" He laughed, and then his fist came down, hard, against my shoulder. "You deserve this. You always do." Something broke in me at that moment. It wasn't a bone, at least, I hoped not, but something deeper. I remember staring at the floor and wondering if there would ever be a day when I would get out. That night, when he left to clear his head, I crawled to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My cheek was red and swollen, my hair tangled, my eyes hollow. That woman staring back at me didn't look like me. She looked like a stranger. For the first time, I let myself think about leaving. If you're hearing this story, and you have ever felt trapped or worthless, please know you're not alone. Your voice matters. And if you can, share this video, subscribe, or leave a comment, because no one should suffer in silence. The next day, I did something I had never dared before. I picked up his phone while he was in the shower. His passwords had always been off limits, but something inside me had snapped. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone, but I found what I was looking for. Messages. Photos. Her name was Jessica. They had been seeing each other for months. In his texts, he told her I was crazy, useless, a waste of space. They even laughed about me together. That was the moment I stopped crying. The pain turned to something else, a fire in my chest I didn't recognize. Rage, maybe. But also a kind of freedom. He had destroyed my body, my spirit, and now he was trying to replace me. No more. I sent screenshots of every single message to my email, backing them up. Then I packed a small bag, grabbed my ID, and called my sister. I could barely get the words out through the tears, but she came for me in less than 30 minutes. She hugged me so tight when I stepped outside that I could finally breathe again. "You're safe now," she promised. I slept on her couch that night. It was the first night in so long that I wasn't afraid of footsteps outside my door. I still woke up a dozen times, heart racing, but there was no screaming, no fists, no hateful words. Just silence. The next morning, I filed a police report. The officer looked at my bruises and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes, with a confidence I didn't know I had. Days later, I talked to a lawyer. I showed him the screenshots, the bruises, every piece of evidence. He nodded calmly. "You're going to testify," he told me. "And I think you might want to call his mistress as a witness." I stared at him, shocked. "She knows what he's capable of," the lawyer explained. "If she's willing to talk, it could help your case." I swallowed hard. The idea of standing in a courtroom, of speaking those words out loud, made me dizzy. But then I thought of the bruises. I thought of every "you deserve this" that he had thrown in my face. No. I was done being silent. I nodded. "I'll do it," I said. This was the first step toward getting my life back. The morning I woke up on my sister's couch, I felt lighter than I had in years. My bruises still hurt, and the nightmares woke me every hour, but there was no yelling, no footsteps pounding toward me, no threats whispered in the dark. Just silence, and the gentle breathing of my sister sleeping down the hall. For the first time, I started to believe that maybe I could survive this. Over breakfast, my sister watched me with worried eyes. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. I nodded. "I have to," I said, feeling my voice shake. "For me. For every woman he might hurt after me." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're not alone," she reminded me. That gave me courage. I called the lawyer again that afternoon. He was calm and reassuring, explaining what would happen next: protective orders, evidence, witnesses. When he mentioned the mistress testifying, my stomach twisted, but I knew it was the right move. She had seen a side of him I hadn't. Maybe she had suffered too. We found her on social media. Jessica. I stared at her pictures, smiling with him, clueless about the monster he really was. Part of me wanted to hate her, but another part thought, maybe she's just another victim. My lawyer sent her a message explaining the case and asking if she would be willing to testify. To my surprise, she answered within an hour. I had no idea. "I'll help you." Reading those words made me cry. I wasn't alone. If you're hearing this story, and you've ever felt trapped in a cycle of fear, know that there are people who will stand with you. Please share this story, comment, or subscribe. It helps other women know they are not alone. The following week, the hearing was scheduled. My sister came with me to the courthouse, holding my hand so tightly my knuckles went white. I could barely breathe when I saw him sitting there, dressed in a suit, looking calm, collected, like he wasn't the same man who had told me "you deserve this" while he raised his fists. He smirked when he saw me. I felt the old fear bubbling up, but then I looked at my sister, and at Jessica sitting behind my lawyer, ready to speak. No more fear. The judge called us up. My lawyer presented the screenshots, the police reports, the medical records. I could hear the murmur in the courtroom as the photos of my bruises were shown. Then it was my turn to speak. My hand shook as I took the oath, but when I opened my mouth, the words poured out. I told them everything: the first time he hit me, how he had twisted my arm, how he had told me I was nothing, worthless, trash. I saw the judge's eyes harden with every sentence. And then Jessica took the stand. She told them how he had manipulated her too, how he had bragged about controlling me, how he laughed about my pain. I could barely look at him. He stared at the floor, jaw clenched, trapped in his own lies. For the first time, I felt powerful. When the judge spoke, her voice was cold and sharp. "This court grants a full protective order," she declared. "And temporary sole occupancy of the home." It was like someone had lifted a stone from my chest. I could finally breathe again. When I stepped out of the courthouse, the sun felt warmer than I had remembered. Jessica walked up to me and handed me back the evidence I had given her. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. I nodded, grateful. "It's not your fault," I told her. I still had a long road ahead. There would be more hearings, more paperwork, more nightmares. But I had survived the worst. I looked up at the sky and let a tear fall, a tear of relief. After the hearing, my sister drove me back to her apartment. It was a tiny place, cramped and cluttered, but to me it felt safer than any mansion. I sat on her couch in silence, trying to process what had just happened. He was out of my house. The judge had granted me the right to stay, and the protective order meant he couldn't come near me. But the idea of walking through those doors again, alone, terrified me. My sister noticed. "Do you want me to come with you?" she asked. I nodded, ashamed that I couldn't do it by myself. When we pulled into the driveway, my heart started to race. It felt like the walls of that house still remembered every scream, every hit, every time I cried myself to sleep. I pushed the key into the lock with shaking hands. The living room was exactly how we'd left it, cold, spotless, fake. I saw the same couch where he had once shoved me, the same floor where I had fallen so many times. My sister walked ahead, opening the curtains to let in the light. "You're home now," she said softly. That word home made my chest ache. I wanted this place to feel safe again, but I didn't know if it ever could. Over the next few days, we worked together to clean every corner, to wash away the memories. I threw out the sheets we had slept on, the dishes he liked, the pictures of us smiling. Each trash bag felt like a step forward. When I found a hidden box of his things under the bed, I paused. His cologne, receipts from dinners with Jessica, stupid love notes he thought I'd never see. I wanted to burn them all. But instead, I put them in a bag and left them by the door. His mess wasn't my problem anymore. If you've ever tried to rebuild yourself after abuse, you know that healing doesn't come in a single day. It comes in tiny victories: the first night you sleep without nightmares, the first time you laugh, the first time you believe you are enough. If my story helps you feel less alone, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. Your support means the world to me, and it might help someone else find the strength to leave. My sister stayed for a week, refusing to let me spend a night alone. We sat up late watching silly movies, eating cheap microwave popcorn, and talking about dreams I had buried for too long. One night, I confessed something I had never dared to say out loud. "I don't know who I am anymore," I whispered. She squeezed my hand. "You'll find her again," she promised. "You already started." That night, I slept in my own bed. Alone. No fists, no threats, no hatred. Just quiet. When I woke up, I realized I had slept through the whole night for the first time in months. I made coffee, opened the windows, and breathed in the fresh morning air. It felt like I was taking my first real breath in years. I still had to face lawyers, paperwork, and the financial mess he left behind. But I felt stronger. I was no longer the woman who flinched at a raised voice. I was someone who stood up, who fought, who survived. As I walked through the hallway, I saw a mirror on the wall, the same one where I used to catch glimpses of my bruises. This time, I saw a woman who was bruised, yes, but not broken. And that gave me hope. Weeks passed, and every day felt like a test. I had to rebuild my routines, learn to sleep alone, and handle the paperwork that came with the divorce. His lawyer tried to delay everything, tried to paint me as unstable, but my evidence was solid. The photos, the police reports, the screenshots, all of it stood like a wall between me and his lies. Every time I felt doubt creeping back in, I would open those files and remind myself, I survived this. My sister kept showing up for me, even after returning to her own apartment. She would call every night, sometimes twice, just to remind me I wasn't alone. One afternoon, as I was sorting through old bills, my phone rang. It was Jessica, the mistress who had testified in court. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. I hesitated. I had hated her for so long, blamed her for being part of my nightmare, but now I realized she had been a tool for his manipulation too. "I'm getting better," I told her honestly. "I wanted to check on you," she said. "He tried to contact me again. I blocked him." My heart jumped. "He's still trying?" "Yes," she confirmed. "But he won't get to me, or you. Stay strong." I hung up and stared at the wall. He was still trying to control the people around him, still refusing to let go. But for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt angry. Angry that he thought I could be broken again. So I called my lawyer. "He's trying to contact the witness," I explained. The lawyer sighed. "We can add a clause to protect her, too. We won't let him intimidate anyone." Hearing those words made me breathe easier. If you're following my story, and you've ever had someone try to silence you, know this: your truth is stronger than any threat. If you can, please like, comment, or subscribe, because spreading these stories helps break the silence for other survivors. Later that week, I returned to the courthouse for another hearing. My hands were cold, but my heart was steady. I sat across from him as the judge reaffirmed my protective order, shutting down his attempts to twist the facts. He stared at me with pure hatred. But it didn't touch me anymore. When it was over, I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. My sister was waiting on the steps. She threw her arms around me and laughed through tears. "You did it," she said. "We did it," I corrected her. That night, back at home, I felt different. Lighter. Stronger. I made myself a simple dinner, turned on soft music, and danced alone in the living room. It was silly and a little awkward, but it was mine, my moment, my peace. The fear was still there, hiding in the corners, but it was smaller now. I could manage it. I could name it. I could fight it. As I went to bed, I looked around my clean, quiet home, the one he could never poison again. I whispered to myself, "You're free," and let the tears come, tears that didn't feel weak this time. They felt healing. The final hearing came faster than I expected. I sat in the same courtroom, the same hard wooden chair, but I felt different this time. Stronger. Like someone who had survived a hurricane and was ready to rebuild. My lawyer argued calmly and confidently, laying out everything I had endured. The bruises. The threats. The cheating. The judge listened without interrupting, glancing at me from time to time with a look I can only describe as respect. Then it was his turn to speak. He tried to twist the story again, calling me dramatic, saying I had made things up. But even his voice shook when he said it. Deep down, he knew no one believed him anymore. Jessica was there too, sitting in the gallery. She had chosen to be a witness again, this time not just for me, but for herself, to break free from his manipulation once and for all. When the judge finally made her ruling, her words felt like sunlight on my face. "You are granted full divorce, full protective orders, and exclusive rights to your home," she declared firmly. He froze, mouth open, like he couldn't believe he'd really lost. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd felt in years. Jessica caught up with me outside and hugged me. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said, smiling through tears, "we did." My sister was waiting at the car, cheering and crying at the same time. It felt surreal, as if someone had pressed pause on a nightmare and I could finally breathe again. That evening, I walked into my house alone. But it didn't feel like a place of fear anymore. It felt like mine. I went room by room, opening the windows, letting fresh air wash away every bit of stale darkness he had left behind. I made myself tea and sat on the couch, watching the sunset through clean glass. There was no screaming, no footsteps stomping, no threats. Just the peaceful sounds of the world going on outside. And for the first time, I let myself think about tomorrow. About what I wanted. About who I was. About what I deserved. If you followed this story, thank you. Your likes, comments, and support remind me, and other survivors, that our voices matter. That we are stronger together. That no one has the right to tell us you deserve this ever again. I stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked at myself one last time. No bruises, no fear. Just me. I whispered, "I deserve peace," and believed it. And then, with a quiet smile, I closed the door to my past, and opened the one to my future.